Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Turbine Talk with me, Shah Hussain. Turbine Talk is brought to you by Jeep, as you can clearly see from the number of promotionals that we've just done. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who have just joined us, I'm here talking to the legendary Craig Lieberman, the man behind most of the cars of Fast and the Furious, the man behind the game that changed my life, Need for Speed Underground. This man is an artist. He's an automotive enthusiast. And he's with us here today. Craig, can you hear me? Craig, are you there?
Hang on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right. I was worried. There's like, what happened?
So, ladies and gentlemen, Craig Lieberman is here. But before we move on to Craig and continue the conversation with him, let me just take a quick look at the chat lines here today. We have Mrs. Shamsed Rahman here, Mrs. Sadat Saif is here, Mr. Neon is here, Mrs. Sharaf Sinha is here, Libu is here. One of our good friends, Mrs. Saeed Akash Hussain is here. It's his birthday today. Mr. Akash Hussain, happy birthday. Many happy returns of the day. Farhan Haq is here. Farhan Haq has asked me to kindly lower my volume of my mic, but I think this is better now. Anyway, moving on. Let's get back to Craig. Craig, you were saying.
I forgot.
So you were saying about how the Fast and Furious, how you were involved in it.
Okay, we technical advisors talk we were having. Okay, so technical advisors, basically our role is to advise the production team about the subject matter. In this particular case, it was illegal street racing and the cars and the modifications on the cars. I was focused on the cars as a technical advisor. RJ was focused on the illegal street racing scene and the wardrobe and that kind of stuff. So basically, the key word in that phrase is advisor. We give them advice. You know, we make suggestions about the parts they should use on the cars, things like that. And then it snowballed. It developed into a bigger role over the time. They wanted to get the car sounds just right, so they hired me back as an advisor for the sound production, and we went out to a runway and airstrip. And where we brought the Supra, the Maxima, and a whole bunch of other cars, Eclipses, and all that kind of stuff. And we did speed runs up and down the runway. You know, they have to get all kinds of sounds, like the car pulling away, the car revving, the car launching, the car doing high-speed flybys, full throttle passes, all that. So when we get there, they asked us, okay, you guys are going to drive your own cars, right? And we're like, well, we're not stunt drivers. They said, it's a straight road. You can't hit anything. I said, okay. So you're going to put these guys in charge of their own cars to do 140 miles an hour on airstrip? Okay, we have no problem with that. So we did that for a day.
Wow.
Actually, a couple of days. So there was a lot of things to it because at the time, Universal didn't have anybody on staff that knew anything about the Japanese tuner car world.
Right.
And because I was running the Naira drag race series in the United States, which was just for Japanese sports cars, Japanese cars, I had connections with a lot of the companies that could contribute to making the movie. And that's basically why I got hired. And that turned into about a 3-year adventure, all done, between the first movie and the second movie. The same thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I believe you often get asked as to why the Fast and the Furious universe has changed its direction from being an illegal street race concept to something that is very, very different at this day and age. But I don't think you have anything to do with that, or
No.
even when you were involved.
I stopped working on the movie after Tokyo Drift. That was the last
Right.
movie I worked on for them. That's a great question. I get it all the time, and I'm going to give an answer that some people are not going to like, but it's the truth. Okay. Here's the deal. Movie companies are in business to make money. Number one priority. They are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They need to make money. The first movie was produced for $40 million, $39 million, and made $211 million. Fast 7, which had nothing to do with illegal street racing, cost them I believe it was $150 or $180 million to make, and it made $1.5 billion with no street racing. Okay, so remember that for a second. It's going to be relevant in a moment.
Okay.
After Tokyo Drift, which was the worst movie box office wise, it sold the least amount of money, or made the least amount of money of all the movies. Universal was scratching their head and said, hey, we got to do something else. What are we going to do? And they did a lot of research, and it turns out that heist movies, theft movies, movies about people stealing stuff, some great conquest or burglary, whatever word works in your language,
Sure.
It becomes a heist movie. That's what we call it in the U.S. And then since then, they've just been doing it that way. In 2009, I think it was, Vin Diesel gave an interview for a magazine and said, we had to get away from the illegal street racing world because it just isn't enough interest from most people around the world. And think about this, no matter where you live, whether it's your country, India, Thailand, the United States, walk up and down your street and see how many people have JDM cars parked in their driveway that are all modified. Okay?
Mm-hmm,
it's a small number, right? Even
it's a very small number.
So think about your neighborhood. Every single person living in that neighborhood probably goes to a movie at some point in their life, right? But how many of those people actually have JDM cars downstairs or in their parking lot that belong to them, and they're all into illegal street racing? The answer is not a lot. Very, very globally, it's this much of the population. But everybody can understand, no matter how old you are, whether or not you know anything about cars, you understand the concept of a burglary, of a heist, of a theft. So then it becomes an action movie with cool cars. And so Universal is adamant about going down that path. They've done a lot of research about their audience. The largest audience, the largest segment of the audience is Latino, Hispanic, from South America, Central America, Spain, Portugal, Hispanic, Latino. That's the biggest audience. This is why you're seeing the incorporation of like Latino cultural elements, the music, the people, and all that kind of stuff. And they've done very well doing that approach because these movies are making a lot of money. Now, for people like your fans and people like me, they've lost a lot of the element of the JDM stuff that we like to see. But to their credit, they do make an effort in almost every movie to squeeze in a couple of cool JDM cars. An R34 Skyline is in almost every movie. You're going to see it again in Fast 9. And then they keep doing that as a tribute to Paul. Paul was a Porsche guy as well. You'll usually see a Porsche in one of the movies, and in the movies, at least one of those cars. So there's a lot of that going on. So they're not car movies really, but what other movie franchise is around today that produces a movie with all kinds of wonderfully expensive and exotic cars and then blows them up? There's not a lot of movies doing that. So I'm going to say it's still kind of a car movie, but it's not a car movie.
It's not a car movie. It's like the Italian Job.
Right.
Like the Italian Job.
If you were into minis, that was a lot of fun. But me as an American with a front wheel drive and a tiny little engine, a tiny little turbo, I wasn't very excited about minis.
Right.
Because we're Americans. We like our big old V8 motors and all that kind of stuff, our carburetors and all that, that fuel injection stuff for all you boys out there. That's not for us, man.
That's not for us. I can do that accent a little bit too.
You did it well, the Texas accent, I call it.
That's the Texas accent.
No disrespect, but there's a lot of that. And the picture car teams are usually like that. The people who work in Hollywood, who build picture cars for a living, most of them are old white guys like me. And so people like us grew up in the muscle car era. I was never really a muscle car guy. I just wanted to do something different with my life. But most of them were ever given the opportunity. What should we use? What kind of car should we use for this character? Ford, Chevy, Dodge. Well, how about a Nissan Skyline? A what?
What?
Japanese Corvettes.
Japanese Corvettes. Craig, that's amazing. We're gonna move on to a little bit of. We're gonna move away a little bit from Fast and Furious for just a second. We're gonna go into your personal automotive history, but before we do that, I can see that there are a few questions here already. Mr. Farhan Hawk has asked a very interesting question. He's asked that in Tokyo Drift, was the Mustang Fastback really an abomination with parts of different cars or just a stock car?
So most cars that you will see, especially cars that are being used for stunts, are usually pulled out of a junkyard and they are reassembled using parts from other cars to get one complete car. But you have to understand that in each of the movies, they have the way they build the cars goes like this. They have one very pretty, shiny car. That's the one where the actor will pull up and come to a stop and then jump out, and it gets the close-ups, all that kind of stuff. That's called the hero car. Hero 1, okay? They usually have a copy of that car in case this one gets crushed for some reason. So they build a copy of that. That's Hero 2. Everything else is a stunt car. Sometimes they need 2 stunt cars. Sometimes they need 9 or 10 stunt cars. So the stunt cars are very rough. They're basically just a shell of a car with only the equipment they need to do the stunts. So it'll have tires and wheels, proper brakes, maybe an emergency handbrake for doing slides, that kind of thing. But they are not pretty cars. The actual Hero 1 Mustang was an RB26 equipped Mustang that was a junkyard rescue car. So.
Okay, cool. I think that answers the question for Mr. Farhan. We're going to take another very short break. We're just going to come right back because for those of you who've been wondering, with the promo that we had released, we had 2 guests on our panel today. So our special guest, Mr. Avik Anwar, will be joining us shortly. But at the moment, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Turbine Talk with me, Shad Hussain. Today, as you all know, my guest of honor is Mr. Craig Lieberman, the legend behind a lot of the automotive constructs that is the car culture today. This legendary man has joined us live from California, and we are very glad to have him here. Also joining us today very shortly will be Mr. Avik Anwar. Mr. Avik Anwar, for anybody who's watching outside of Bangladesh, is one of the most pioneering race car drivers of Bangladesh. But before I move on to the questions with Craig Lieberman, I can see that there are other people who've also joined us. Mr. Ashraf Neon, he's said, such an amazing show. Love to learn about so many things. Mr. Omar Rahman has asked Craig Lieberman what he drives now. We're absolutely going to get to that. We're going to talk about his GTR. Mr. Chaudhary has asked about the GTR. Mr. Sadat Saif has asked a very interesting question, which I will be tackling towards the end of the show. Craig, we've just talked about Fast and Furious, which I'm pretty sure you've talked about 100 million times, but let's focus a little bit on you now. What we would like to know is your personal history with cars. So, what your first car was and what you have now and everything along the way.
Oh gosh. Well, like most young people, my parents did not buy me a $100,000 Nissan GTR as my first car. I had a little turd car. It was a four-door Isuzu I-Mark in this country. I think they call it the Gemini in other parts of the world.
The Gemini.
The Gemini, yeah. So it was silver when I bought it, and then I painted it Porsche red and put a big wing on the back of it. And we didn't have neon lights back in those days, so we had to go find the trucks, the big lorries that drive down the highway with the lights. We had to take those off and then stick them underneath our car. That was our poor man's neon kit back in the day. I come from humble beginnings, okay?
That's a fastback, isn't it? It's a fastback, isn't it?
No, there's two versions. There's a two-door hatchback, fastback, and there's a four-door sedan. I had the four-door sedan.
Oh, you had the four-door sedan.
It wasn't my choice. It was a free car. My dad gave it to me, so there was that. So I started off with that, and from there I had a V6 Capri from Europe, and then I went into Datsun 240Zs. I had two 240Zs at different times and a 260Z. After that, I've been through Datsun 510s, a Firebird, an old Camaro, some Mustangs from the early 1990s. God, there's a bunch of cars. I've had 40-something cars in my life. And then after Fast and Furious, I went through another Supra, 1,000 horsepower. I can't remember some of these cars. Porsche 996 Turbo, a wide-body M3 called Uber M3. So if you Google that phrase, that car still exists. It's a wide-body blue M3, a blue Lamborghini Diablo, a yellow Lamborghini Diablo, an SL600, CLK 55, Audi RS4. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of cars. Lexuses I've had. So I've been through a lot of cars, but I'm in my 50s now. So when you get to be this age and you have an addiction that isn't drugs, but it's cars, this is what happens.
This is what happens, I think this is a much better vice than drugs.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Let me cut you off and ask you this: why a Diablo and not a Countach?
I don't know if you've ever driven a Countach, but there's a phrase in America that goes like this: "Never meet your heroes," because you will be disappointed. Okay.
It's a ridiculous car to drive, isn't it? On a daily?
It's a horrible car. Horrible. First off, I was just watching Top Gear the other day, and they had a race between the Lamborghini Countach LP5000 and the Ferrari Testarossas. That's the picture of a car that I had on my wall. Everybody in my age grew up with a Lamborghini picture on their wall.
Me too.
And when I finally got to drive one, I was like, oh, God, this is horrible. But by that time, I was in the early 2000s, and the cars had come a long way since then. It's very difficult to back the car up. They're very mechanically unreliable. The fit and finish is horrible. Where they put the radio in the car is just stupid. It's like, I don't know what they were doing, but it's a beautiful car to look at. It is a rolling work of art for sure, but it is just not a good car. And the number one thing for me is that I don't care how well the car looks. Looks are secondary. It's like
Looks
getting
good.
married, right?
Right. Right.
You usually pick somebody, if you're smart, who a woman is good down to her heart and down to her soul, right?
Right.
She doesn't
Right.
have to be, Miss Bangladesh, right?
No,
No, she
especially
just,
not now.
yes. Okay,
Right.
well, there you go. But you find something you like. And the same thing for me, a car. A car has to have a soul. A car has to have performance that I can rely upon, and has to put a smile on my face every day. And that's my main criteria. So
That's
with
really
that said, my current car is an R35 GTR. This is the car I've owned the longest in my life. I've never owned a car more than 4 years until this car. And now I'm going on year 6 with this car, with my 2015 GTR. And it's been the best car I've ever owned.
Why has this car stood out more than any of the other ones?
Well, if you just do it by the numbers, 0 to 60 is religiously around 2.8 seconds. Name another car that can do that for under $300,000,
Jesus.
right?
Right.
You do a few modifications, intake, exhaust, fuel injectors, fuel pump, and a tune, and the car runs low 10-second quarter mile, 10 O's, 10-1. And you can
Right.
drive
Right.
it every day. It has navigation system, it has air conditioning, has heated seats, it has a usable trunk. It's people say it's expensive to maintain. It's not. So I spend about $1,800 every 18 months on this car to maintain it. So
You spend about $1,800 every month to maintain
no,
this?
every 18 months.
Every
year and a
18
half.
months.
Yeah, so about
Wow.
$100 a month in maintenance if you kind of
Right. Sure.
amortize
Sure.
it. So
Sure. Ms. Fairuz Nahreen has joined us in the show. She says such an anticipated show. The Bangladesh car community loves you, Mr. Lieberman. Ms. Fairuz Nahreen is actually one of the most talented individuals that I personally know. She's been a hardcore viewer of this show for since the very beginning, and I think that one day she's going to run for office in New York, in America.
wow, okay.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Only about 3% of my followers are women. So
Oh, yeah?
yeah, and mostly from outside the United States, if you can imagine that. But it's always fascinating to me when women take an interest in the car community, because I have found, as you probably have, that people who come into the community, no matter what their knowledge level, they soon develop a passion for it. And it's the same thing with all the women I've seen come through the community. They develop a passion for it, and they've been around for a long time. Quite a few of my gal pals are car people. My wife is a car person, so she's a Porsche fanatic. Although she's without a Porsche right now, but she comes from the Porsche world. So it is fun.
I'm a Porsche guy.
Are you?
I'm a Porsche guy. Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing wrong with Porsches. Can't say nothing. Nothing wrong with it.
But having said that, the new Porsches, I personally feel the art is dying. I personally feel that with this movement of being trying to be commercial, it's losing soul. Because when I see a Boxster now, when I see the new 518, in fact, I think I just did a cover of the 518 a couple of months ago, and I looked at it. The Boxster is one of my most favorite convertibles ever. It's such a fun car to drive. But when you sit in a Boxster, Porsche makes sure you don't forget that you're driving a Porsche, because there's a Porsche badge here, there's a Porsche badge there, there's a Porsche badge here, there's a Porsche badge there. That's not required. You don't need to do that. Because I remember the Carreras from back in the day. What you had was just the emblem on the steering wheel and the Carrera on the back. And in fact, if you go further back, they didn't even have the Carrera on the back seat, on the headrest of the seat. It was pure. Now it's just, do you understand what I'm saying? That's just my opinion, though.
I do. They're becoming too commercial in your eyes. I think with the Boxster is, to a lot of people, it's not a real Porsche, right? It's just not.
It's not.
You got to buy the GT4s and all that kind of stuff that came with that kind of stuff in order to get people excited about it. But there's a lot of people just call them overpriced Volkswagens too, because generally speaking they haven't changed. But I always laugh at that, because if you take a look at an old 911 from the 1970s or the old 912s, and you look at them, the back view of them side by side, the old Porsche is this big in the butt, and the new Porsche is like this. It's not the same car. I mean, yes, it has generally sort of the same shape. They are not the same cars. I mean, even my 996 Turbo, I drove my buddy's GT3 RS about a month ago, and it's markedly different from the 996 twin turbo. So it's definitely an evolution. They are very difficult cars to drive fast on the track too.
True. Craig, let's get back to your GTR for a quick bit. So, what kind of mods do you have on your GTR right now?
So everybody does pretty much the same thing with a turbocharged car. I don't care if you're driving a 1.2 liter Fiat Panda or a 3.8 liter GTR. It's the same thing. You open up the intakes, get them as big as you can get them, typically 2.5, 3 inch, right? Then after you do that, you do the downpipe or downpipes on a V6 motor. So open them up.
On a V6.
And then a large exhaust with no restriction. I do have mufflers on my car, even though it blows through turbos, to keep it quiet, because I'm not a 20-year-old kid anymore, and I don't want to be screaming in the car, "Where do you want to go for dinner, Eddie?" Completely over that. This is what comes with old age. So there's that. And then you have to, in order to turn the boost up, you need, some kind of computer program. I use Ecotech, which is a Bluetooth app. It plugs into my OBD2 port, and my tuner sends me a map, and I download it, and off we go. And then injectors and pumps, fuel pumps, you need more fuel flow, and then an E85 conversion kit. That's what everybody does on a GTR. So you take it from 550 horsepower stock to about 650 horsepower at the wheels and about 640 pound-feet of torque. And I've been driving it like that for about 3 years now, and it's been bulletproof. So,
this gentleman named Alif Chaudhry has a very interesting question for you. He's asked that there were some similarities between the Need for Speed Underground and the Fast and Furious movies. Was the similarity intentional?
I think sort of it was. Okay, first off, it was clearly inspired by Fast and Furious, racing through the streets and all that kind of stuff. I'll tell you a little known fact about that video game. We actually built a real live version of that car. I don't know if you're aware of that. So
no.
This is the car. My partner and I, Neil Chin, and I built this car. This is an actual car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was an actual car. It had a Bomex kit. It had the wheel. You notice the wheels are the same that were on the.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, because these wheels literally came off the movie car. When I got my car back, I took the wheels off, put them on this car, and I put different wheels on my R34. So. Oh,
that's so cool.
Yeah. So all right. So there's that. So once we built that car, I was asked to fly up to Vancouver, Canada, and sit down and play the game with the developers for about a week. And so they had this guy there who worked on the Star Wars movie, which was the one where they're riding the speeders through the forest. Is that Empire Strikes Back, I think?
I think that's Empire Strikes Back.
So the guy who did visual effects for that came on board with Need for Speed, with EA Games, and said, if you want to get the motion right, the street lights have to go by at a certain pace with a certain amount of blur, and then there's got to be light refractions going across the front of the car. And they've been doing that for a very long time. Go back and watch gameplay on YouTube and pay attention to how the street lights are going by. Okay?
I know exactly what you mean, right.
And that was pioneering of the day. But my job was to say, give them input on, how the cars drove and all that kind of stuff. But again, I was a technical advisor, and they weren't really focused on making it accurate, because the way they said it is a lot of people who are playing this game have never driven a car. And then I've said to them, basically, a lot of people who are playing this game and think they can drive a car should probably not drive a car.
Craig, we're gonna come back right to you in a quick second, but before we do that, we had in the promo discussed that there was a special guest who was supposed to join us today, and he is here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the screen, Mr. Avik Anwar. I guess the champ is here. The champ is here.
Hi, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hi, Craig. Good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to meet you.
Same here. The feeling is mutual. It's a great honor to be in a live show presented by you and Mr. Shad. And I thank the sponsor Jeep for enabling us to do this.
Mr. Avik Anwar, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Thank
Craig,
you.
a quick interesting fact. I literally, it was 1 year ago. I don't know, Mr. Avik Anwar, if he's going to remember this, but last year, exactly on this date, this was the first time that I had interviewed Mr. Avik Anwar.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been a
It,
year? Same
it's
date?
been a
Wow.
year. Same day. I woke up this morning and my social media, Facebook showed me a memory because I had shared the creative, the promo of that. And it was like, this was the first time that I interviewed Mr. Avik Anwar. I guess we've come full circle, haven't we?
Yep. Yes, we did. And we did it with the coronavirus too.
We did it with the coronavirus too.
Yeah.
Craig, let me introduce you to Mr. Avik. I've already given Avik Bhai. I've already given Craig a short detail about you. Uh, Avik Anwar is one of the, and I mean this when I say this. I don't care about anybody else. I mean this when I say this. He's a matter of pride for people who are in Bangladesh. This man is a pioneer in the racing sector of this country.
Thank you.
He has
Thank you. Thank you.
his accolades they're huge. Their accolades are huge. Mr. Avik Anwar, let me just I know there are people outside of Bangladesh watching us today. For them, can you please give us a quick rundown of who you are and your latest achievements?
My name is Avik Anwar. I am one of the first local racers to win a local championship 3 years in a row. Then I decided to race internationally. Now, bear in mind, we don't have any racetracks in Bangladesh, so we only practice on the simulator. And after 2 years of trying nonstop, getting a lot of hate from a lot of people about not winning races, I started winning them. I became the first international race winner from my country, and it's just been a straight line upwards from there. So I've won like five races now. Recently won an endurance race of 2 hours with another fellow Bangladeshi race car driver. And then I did a 9 hour endurance race, not 24 hours in Malaysia. So that was good. We only had two drivers, and the rest of the grid were like professional Japanese Super GT drivers or Le Mans drivers. And they're all laughing at us at the starting grid. Like, how can two drivers compete 9 hours? But we finished 14 in our class, so that was good too. And most recently, I won 2 races in one day at the Dubai Autodrome in the UAE Pro Car Championship, and then the next day I won the endurance race. So it's been a good year so far, and I'm happy with the achievements, and I'm happy for the people of my country. So yeah.
We are proud of you. We are absolutely proud of you, and there's no doubt about that. What you have achieved from where where your position was, what you have achieved, that is absolutely not a matter of joke. We're absolutely proud of it.
I would also like to add something. My racing was like the need to race started from Formula One, but the need to race more started from Fast and the Furious 1. I am not joking.
There we go.
So I'm a huge Paul Walker fan. I went to the place where he died. I did a donut, sort of, with the Ford Mustang GT500. At that time, I was studying in Toronto. So I went to LA for a show, and then I went to Valencia to the exact spot. I have it on video. I wrote on the wall, "We miss you from Bangladesh." Like, you have no idea. Like, I put neons in my car after the first Fast and the Furious movie.
Everybody's blaming me for that. Now, here I was just going to say how it honored for me to meet the Ayrton Senna of Bangladesh, because I've been reading about you. Okay, so I know that you're a source of national pride in your country, and your career kind of follows in some ways Ayrton Senna, if you really think about it. I saw that your results in GT86, right over there, was that in UAE? I think it was.
Yes.
Right. So I'm thinking to myself, this guy's probably a huge deal in his country, because I was trying to think in my head. I follow Formula One. I'm trying to think and even Le Mans, and I'm trying to think to myself, have I ever seen a Bangladesh flag on the side of a race car? And I'm thinking to myself, nope. Pretty sure I haven't.
No.
That's a great story. But the fact
thank
that
you.
you put neon on the car because of the movie, why do people always blame that stuff on me?
No, I'm not blaming you. I'm inspired by the movie. Like Fast and the Furious 1 and 3, they're my favorite installments. Anything else is just Blasphemy.
No, it's just rubbish.
As the British say, rubbish.
Rubbish. Craig, your influence in the car culture is so beautifully put by Mr. Avik Anwar right here. This is what I'm talking about. The butterfly effect of you being in the right place at the right time, as you've said in so many interviews, has absolutely changed the automotive car culture all over the world. And we appreciate that. Mr. Avik Anwar, because this is the first time we're talking cars with Craig, so let's talk about your cars for a bit. Even though I know a lot of the Bangladeshi people already know about your cars, the ones that you own by yourself, let's for the viewers who are abroad, who are watching us from abroad, let's ask you about the cars that you own.
So I'm a huge JDM fan. I've been a JDM fan all my life. So the cars I currently own are a Honda NSX 1992, and then I have a Nissan Silvia S15 with a SR20 DET. I have the first Subaru Impreza WRX STI, the GC8 model. I have a Mitsubishi Evolution 10. I have a Honda S2000. I have a Honda Civic Type R, the EP3, the hatchback one. Then I used to have a Silvia S14. I sold it and I regret it. So that was the only one in the country. I also have, what else do I have? I recently got a Porsche Tycoon, fully electric. So I always wanted to move to electric to see what all the hype is about. My cousin has a Tesla, so I was driving it all the time, but I didn't get any rush from the Tesla. But the Porsche Tycoon is something else. It's out of this world. And then I have a Skyline R32, which I'm restoring right now. And I also want to buy a R35. Initially, when I first drove the R35, I thought the car had no soul, nothing. But now when I, go out with my friends and I'm doing crazy speeds, and the R35 just go by me like this, like I'm nothing. I'm standing still. So yeah, I need R35. Probably a Nismo GTR.
No.
No?
No, Nismo is a waste of money.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, because for the extra money you're going to spend on a Nismo, you can make a 1,000 horsepower GTR.
Ah, okay.
Oh.
Good advice.
Yeah, but if you want it for the collectability and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, there's no beating a Nismo. So.
Well, in my country, cars are like 800% more expensive than the US. So
yeah,
getting a Nismo would be wiser. A GTR here, brand new, is around $1 million. Yes.
Flat out, absolutely. I love Craig's expression right now.
Maybe it's time to elect new leaders. I'm just saying.
We're not going to go into that here. We're not going to go into that here. No, that's just absolutely no, Craig.
I think you should run for office, Avik, and say, no more car tax.
No, I can't. I don't want to get into politics. For my daily driver, I drive a Land Cruiser V8, which I forgot to mention. It's one of the nicest cars you can buy and drive. Like, it's just so easy to drive a big SUV.
They're big here in the United States too. The FJs and the Land Cruisers, Toyotas are very well known, especially in other countries. I go to South America, I see them all over the place. They're great.
So I was hearing you having a talk with him about your cars, and I was really impressed that you drove the GTR since the last 6 years.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. So this like affirms my decision to buy a GTR more.
You get a 2012 or newer is the car that you want. They keep softening the suspension. 2015, it got a little softer, and then in 2017, it got softer again. In 2019, it got softer again. So you probably want to stick around 2014, 2015, unless you have to have new, which I understand, but you're going to have to do some suspension stuff. But so there's a kind of a lot to it. But the basic recipe is easy, intake, exhaust, ECU, fuel injectors. And that kind of stuff.
I've done all my research, so I have to get down to getting the car and then putting everything on.
Yeah, $1 million for a GTR?
Yeah.
What is the let me ask you this question. What is the medium income in your country, Bangladesh?
The national GDP is $2,000 per person. The medium income should be something around $7,000.
That's a lot of money. I mean, only super rich. It seems like the classes are like really far apart in that country, I guess. Yeah. Like the
Sort
rich
of,
are
yes.
really rich, and then the people who are down here are struggling to get by.
Yeah, 80% people are
Um,
really struggling.
It's okay. I mean, things are getting better, a lot better now, and
It's
Mhm.
you know, things are changing.
Like
I
we've
think
developed a lot since our last government. Like we have really developed a lot. There would be times when people would go without food, but now at least everybody is able to eat
that's good.
absolutely,
on their own.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's emerging power, man. It's coming up.
Yep.
That's good. But sorry, go
Right,
ahead.
go ahead, Craig.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but if you do get your hands on a GTR, you'll love it. And if you ever come
Oh,
out to Los Angeles, I only live about a half an hour south of Los Angeles. So
LA is one of my favorite places to visit in the world. Like
yeah.
it's nice all the time. And the
Next
GTR
time
I'm
you come,
getting is a used one. It's probably gonna cost me around $400,000. So it wouldn't be too bad.
yeah.